Good. Welcome, everybody. My name is Slade Burgess. I work for the Office of Film and Music in Seattle. I am holding down the fort for Kate Becker. She is currently in Sydney keynoting a Global Cities After Dark event on their dime, so it's really exciting. So she'll be back in a week, but I'm just kind of holding down the fort for her now. I just wanted to start out by thanking SIF for the venue. I wanted to thank Artist Trust. This is a partnership with Artist Trust. I wanted to thank Seattle Film Institute for being here. Quick announcements, next month, the holidays, we will not be having a happy hour. We'll resume back in January. And we'll be posting on social media through our email exactly where that location will be in the topic very soon. Yeah, short and sweet, that's it. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm gonna pass it over to Brian, he'll introduce everyone and we'll get started. Thanks.
Hey everybody, how's it going tonight? Good. I'm Brian McGuigan. I'm the program director at Artist Trust. Oh, shit. There we go. Thank you all for coming out. So before we get started, just wanted to have you all give a warm round of applause for our panelists here. Brent Watanabe, Elliot Graney-Saki. Did I say that right? I tried my best, Elliot. I'm sorry. And Chase Yoon. Can you all show them some love? So when Kate approached me about putting together a panel, I was really interested in talking about money. I think it's something that artists don't really talk about and kind of how to make it. I think we're all sort of hustling and trying to pull it together and trying to make ends meet. Some of us have families or have projects that we're working on or incredible student loan debt or whatever it is that's sort of holding you back or moving you forward, and really wanted to sit down and just have an honest conversation about those sorts of things. So I invited these three folks here because they do very different work, but they're all hustling in their own ways, and I thought it'd be nice to just sit down and chit chat. So before we start talking, just wanted to ask you all to just talk a little bit about who you are, the work that you do, and then what you're currently working on. We can just go down the line if you want. Start here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brent Watanabe, and I'm a visual artist. I tend to work, I do large-scale computer-controlled installations, do a lot of work with high-tech stuff, computer programming, robotics, that kind of thing, but it also combines a lot of old traditional tech, drawing and painting, that kind of thing. So currently I'm working on 3 or 4 different projects. I'm working on a robotics project where I'm creating different AI animals that will use cell phones and sit and ignore everything around them but the cell phone. I'm working on a larger project that is half of it will be a mobile phone game that's this endless runner game that I'm hoping will kind of get very popular out there. Endless Runner game is one where you simply run until you die, and in this one, you'll be picking up a tremendous amount of consumer goods, so electronics, fast food, cars, whatever. And but the flip side of that will be that every time you die, the game is going to send the data to a web server, and all of the stuff that you consumed, the garbage will come out and slowly fill up over months live webcam feed of Mount Rushmore. So I'm hoping that one will get people thinking a little bit, and yeah, just that kind of stuff. So.
Hi, my name's Elliot Graney-Saki, and I just want to say thanks to O'Brien and Artist Trust for having us, and Sarah and Sif, and Office of Arts and Culture. So I mostly do documentary filmmaking. I started doing video production when I was 13, 14 through some different school programs, and I grew up in Olympia, so I did some stuff at Evergreen. And besides that, I'm pretty much self-taught, so I was really involved in kind of the DIY punk scene and queer feminist subculture in Olympia and stuff. And my first feature documentary is called Travel Queries, and it's about the radical queer scene in Europe. So I went to an event in Barcelona and kind of met a lot of folks and ended up turning into a big project. And it was based in Berlin for 7 years. So, and I created some other work there, but that was interesting to kind of explore identity through different cultural lenses. And I think that that's a main foundation of the work that I do. So the main film that I'm working on right now is a 10-year project. So in 2018 will be 10 years. It's called Boys on the Inside, and it's about boy identity in women's prison. So and that came about through being the project coordinator with Pat Graney Company's Keeping the Faith, which works as a prisoner arts program that works, has worked at Purdy and is mostly at Mission Creek Correctional Center in Washington. So that's a very interesting project. I was telling them some fun little tidbits about that, lots of stories. And in addition to that, I have another film that's kind of in pre-production called Art Heart Children of Riot Grrrl, and I'm doing a collaboration with co-director Celeste Chan, who's based in San Francisco, and she runs a project called Queer Rebels. So I also do kind of organizing, and I used to do kind of like drag queen performance stuff. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today is I actually started a for-profit business this last year called Elliott Creative, which I feel like has been a very helpful balance of nonprofit and for-profit brain. So that's me.
My name is Chesian, and I guess my main thing is music, but I really love photography and video too. I started out just teaching kids, and I had a lesson that I learned that was really helpful for me, and then I was trying to translate it in a way that made sense to the youth I was working with. And so I came up with this word called So Be Ba, and it means so breathe easy and be aware. And then I saw this music video from, I don't know if you guys know this rapper named Bamboo from California, and then Geo from Blue Scholars, he's local. They made this music video called Books, and it was like, the chorus is like, we should read some books. We should read some books. If I'm lying, they don't die, man. We should read some books. And I was thinking like, man, I saw that, changed my life forever. I was like this is the power of like hip hop and positive message, you know. And I when you look at old school stuff, they have the same message too. And so yeah, that kind of inspired me to make this music video. And I applied my first grant, and then I didn't realize how much I loved like art and being creative, because like growing up I never had that opportunity, and I was always told to be like, you know, more practical and get a professional job. And you know, my sister's like a lawyer, my brother's in real estate, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, luckily I'm the youngest, you know, it's a very big blessing. But I could like watch their lives and be like, that's not what I want for myself. But yeah, yeah, I really enjoy making music, and I kind of feel like art and life are kind of one, and so you just live your life, and you get inspiration from the life that you live, and the person that you are, and the person you become, and then you make some art that reflects, like, you know, your experiences and your consciousness and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, I don't know, like a lot of my songs that really just stem from, like, you know, I lived on the res for like 2 years, like traveled across like, you know, Asia and Southwest, and Southwest in America too, and yeah, I don't know, just doing lots of different things, and then kind of find inspiration, and then yeah, just making music, and then feel like when I make a song, it's kind of tell a story. That's why I love photos and videos too, because I feel like, you know, some people maybe they're more of a visual person than an audio person, but then if you have like the full experience, I think it's really cool. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
And what are you working on now, Jay?
Oh yeah. So I'm working right now on this. It's called GMA project. So GMA stands for grandma, and so I'm making songs that honors my grandma and my elders and my culture. And I'm working with some other artists too. I'm trying to encourage them to do kind of their own version of that, and then we're putting together a multi-generational show. I'm trying to get 3 generations to come, like grandparents, parents, and grandkids, and then we share our music and our story and our culture and like kind of where we're at. And then I really just want people to recognize, like, no matter how different we are, like we're so much more similar than we think, and more than like wanting something like I don't know, that has like some kind of social capital. I feel like if people just understood themselves, they could easily appreciate others. And same thing with like the whole cultural appropriation thing too. I think about that because I do like mostly hip hop music, and I feel like, yeah, I always try to give homage to the Black culture and the Black community, because, you know, they're pioneers in that field, and a lot of the kind of mainstream culture that or at least I grew up enjoying was like almost predominantly made by Black people, and I was just growing up, and that's all I knew. But yeah, so yeah, Grandma Project, love you grandma, gmailproject.com. I'm learning to do these shameless plugs.
You're hustling right now, actually. Thank you. So making it as an artist in Seattle is really hard, especially right now. The city is growing exponentially, becoming more and more expensive. And I'm curious if you could each talk about how you're supporting your work and what are the sort of things you're doing to hustle to make it all happen.
You want to start here?
Anyone who wants to jump in.
Okay, I'll jump in. I was always kind of the black sheep of all my art friends, and that probably will sound strange, but because I always had a square job. I worked warehouse until I was about 30, and knew that during that time I had that mindset, I've either got to make it with art or I'm completely screwed. And at some point I just decided I need to take my pressure off of the art so I can focus on creating what I want rather than worrying about if it's going to make it. And so I started computer programming, that kind of stuff, and I've been doing that ever since. So now primarily my hustle and my focus when I am working on the art is not about figuring out how to sell it or how to monetize or anything like that, but just trying to figure out how to create projects that are important to me and how to get those out to an audience.
So your computer programming day job to then support your conceptual computer programming night job, or evening, or weekend work, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was weird. In a previous life, I did film and video, and that was my background, and I got hired as an animator at a big computer company in the general Seattle area. And from there, I taught myself to program, and the programming just kind of naturally worked its way into the art that I created. And that tends to be the case, whatever I'm working on, either work-wise or outside projects tend to seep into what I'm doing with art. And just another tool to put in the toolbox.
It's kind of rare, actually, to
What's
have
that?
the convergence of your career or the work that you do to pay the bills and the work that you do as an artist. You know,
I think it
often,
was,
like,
yeah,
separate.
I mean, I think I lucked out with regards that I started to teach myself to program, but I think it was also somewhat a conscious effort to not just go to work and solely make money, but at least the knowledge that I picked up there, I could funnel into something worthwhile other than paying bills. So.
That's sort of where you are, Elliot, trying to combine the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started Elliot Creative. Actually, it was my artist website, and then I was having all these identity crises with like being like, okay, well, I want to offer some services, but then it's like I want to do the art because I have too many websites. I really like making them. I have one for my production company that's like my creative film projects, and then ones for like the two main films I have going right now. But with Elliot Creative, that was like my artist website, and then it kind of became more and more about like me wanting to support myself, and then that actually became my business name. So it was kind of, I feel like it's been this long process of like figuring out that I actually wanted to start a business, and like, you know, instead of being really passive about like trying to figure out how to support myself, because I was like teaching, I've taught with like Real Girls and at Northwest Film Forum and Coyote Central and stuff. So yeah, and basically when I decided to take it seriously, a lot of it was just like, you know, I deserve to like have money to live on, and instead of, I don't know, I feel like I kind of grew up in this anarchist like a lot of middle class white kids like pretending like they're poor and like they're not supposed to like want to have money and stuff, and I feel like that wasn't my class background, and so that was really confusing to be shamed for like wanting to like actually be able to have like resources and stuff and be comfortable. So yeah, so I feel like really embracing, it's weird because it's kind of like embracing capitalism in a certain way, but it's also just like embracing the fact that like I deserve to like be able to be paid for my work, and like, you know, like reading all these like blogs and websites about like women and money and like earning $100 an hour and like what, I don't know, just like weird economy things that actually were really helpful for me to kind of realize like inferiority complex that so many women have in professional development, and kind of realizing that that's like a feminist issue, and kind of realizing that me getting paid for my work and being like a professional in my field, and that like I can't like, I'm not somebody who like can sit and like talk super techy about like lenses, but like I can fucking make a movie, so like I don't know, what do you want? It's like, so anyways, yeah, so the business side has been really, really a long process. Also just figuring out, like, really articulating exactly what I'm doing, and like my packages, and like how to deal with clients, and like have formal contracts. And I went through a program with Ventures Nonprofit, which is an organization in the Central District, and they work especially with like marginalized, low-income, POC, women-owned like entrepreneurs and business owners, and they also have a lot of classes in Spanish. Their ED is like a queer Spanish guy who are Mexican, and he was also involved in GSBA, which is the other organization that I do a lot of work with. They're the Greater Seattle Business Association, which is kind of a closeted name. I think they formed in the 80s, but it's actually like a LGBT-focused business bureau, or Chamber of Commerce, I don't know, whatever it's called. Anyways, but they're the biggest business bureau in the region, so like politicians like come to them when they're in town and like seek out them, and they do a lot of really cool philanthropy. They have an LGBT scholarship program. They raised almost like $1 million, their annual fundraiser for it the other day. Anyways, they have a professional development program, and they've been like super, super supportive, and it's just been really interesting to do video and creative stuff that's like what I do and what I'm good at, and actually figure out like getting paid for it, and being in these environments where people are like, we want to make sure you have a profitable business, and like then you can like generate jobs and hire people. And I'm like, who are these people? Because it's like so different than the nonprofit sector. It's just different ways of talking about things. Yeah, so like embracing being able to like have money in my life and prosperity and manifesting that. It's just different. That's the journey I'm on right now. So.
Can you talk a bit about funding Boys on the Side, or Boys on the Inside? I'm sorry, not the Drew Barrymore film. And your first film project that you were in Europe to do.
Yeah, funding Boys on the Inside. Well, I got the Artist Trust grant through fellowship artist residency, and went to the Edna St. Vincent Millay Artist Retreat in upstate New York. I'm starting to read her biography right now. It's interesting. But yeah, funding for that project, like I've gotten some funding from For Culture, but because it's like a 10-year project, I applied recently also to like the Office of Arts and Culture, and I feel like sometimes it's like, how do you kind of keep pitching something where it's like, I'm like, I promise it's gonna fit, I'm gonna finish it, like, please keep on believing in me, and you know, it's like not like a new fresh angle necessarily, so sometimes it's just, you know, I mean, I kind of do it on my own, but I did a successful crowdfunding campaign last fall, and that was actually really great. I got, you know, like people from a lot of institutions that I really respect, like made a donation, and a lot of that was just like them being like, I believe in you, and just making that ask was so weird, because like being like, give me money is like a really foreign thing for me to do. So, but you know, like film directors who are some of my like heroes, like Cheryl Dunye, who's like the like Black lesbian film director, and Silas Howard, who's like this trans film director who's really amazing. Like they donated to my campaign. So, and I mean, I'm really friends with them on Facebook, but yeah. So I mean, funding the project just is kind of, it's not with very much money, and then with the travel queries, I think our budget was like $5,000 or something. I really don't. Like we all individually paid for our flights to Europe with like contract jobs or saving up money, and then we stayed in spots or people's houses and like packed sandwiches and borrowed equipment, and I don't know. I'm really used to like borrow, and I'm not gonna say big deal, but it's just like kind of you know, like doing stuff without money and not having an expectation of having money. So Like when I meet people who are kind of like, oh yeah, I have to have this professional budget and like this full editing suite and do this thing and like in order to make the movie properly, like, I don't know, that's just so foreign to me because I'm like, if I had that approach, I would never make work. So that's kind of like, I mean, I have a friend who has like this great film and she's from Switzerland, she's like, unless I get like full funding, it's like not gonna happen. She dropped the project and I was like, that's really sad to me, like, just fucking make the movie and like it's not perfect, like you don't have the great color correction, whatever, just send it out. It's like about the stories. So anyways, does that answer the question?
Oh yeah, totally. Thank you. So what about you, Che? How are you making it happen?
Yeah, I can actually relate to a lot of what you're saying, although I am a male, but I actually feel like I really did undervalue myself as well, and I didn't really realize like, yeah, I should ask and I should be compensated for my work, and it is very high quality, and if, you know, honestly, if they were getting it from someone else, like they would have no problem paying a lot. So yeah, that's been a shift for me too. And, like I grew up poor, so like I'm very comfortable being poor. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't like this comfort. Like I wanna you know not be poor. You know, and that's not a bad thing. So yeah, I guess that's how I'm making a hustle. Like most of my art is funded by grants, and it happens that I'm a grant writer, so that's like a plus in the grant writing world I hear. And then other than that, like I really pursue what I really love and just like get super into it, and then I try to get good at it, and then I can make it into something profitable. So for example, like right now I teach Tai Chi, and I love it. It's fun. It's great. You know, I teach little kids, and I work this like kind of rich private school. You know, but that really helps a lot. I also write grants to do youth programs too, and then I try to incorporate my artistic practice into the programs because as much as trying to teach the kids, it's like I'm also just another person and trying to figure out a way for myself. So my philosophy is generally like, let's all grow together, you know, let's all work together, and let's all grow together, let's make it all good, no bad, you know, everybody wins, nobody loses. I try to find partnerships and projects and working relationships like that. So yeah, those two right now, and then some grants are funding my life. I think, yeah, I need to not spend money before I get it. That's a big one. Credit cards are also really helpful. And as a business owner, what I realized is you can make up your income. And you're not actually lying because who knows if I don't get a big break every year, yeah? So I just recently got a credit card. They're like, how much do you make here? I was like, I can make $85,000 a year. Which I did not. But you know, you don't actually know because there's still December left. So I'm trying very hard. But based on that income, oh my God, it's been recorded. But anyways, based on the income, it's like, you know, I got a little more credit. You know, that was really helpful because then I could buy gear, and then I could produce work, and then submit it for some grants. But yeah, I perform around Seattle, mostly for free. I'm trying to figure out how to get people to pay for my work, but I don't know, that's not really what the work is about too. So then I keep trying to figure out a way to like not pressure like my art with the money, because I feel like that really taints it. But then it sucks, like being poor sucks, and like I have a partner, shout out, and my son, Sojun. You know, and I have another little baby on the way, so now it's like, oh man, I gotta double down, you know, and like, I'm completely poor, but I don't want my kids to be completely poor. I was like, I feel like I glorified poverty as like a way to get through it, you know? You're like, oh yeah, Ghetto Superstar was one of my favorite songs ever. I rock that on every playlist. But yeah, I think I am trying to figure out like how to, like take what I love about art and then make like a business out of it. So I started a media production company too. It's called Medium. I'm for hire. You can go to chestan.com and I see some of my work samples. I'm a great photographer. I'm a great videographer. I even design my own music for the films that I make now. And so yeah, and then I think once you like, I don't know. Like I'm still trying to figure out where to go from here. But I've finally been able to like have like a home studio and have like a good camera and good glass and like a good mic and like you know I'm learning a lot from lynda.com. It's free if you have a library card. I love library. Shout out to King County Library System. Sorry. That's been like my second home. Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the grant writing and using that to fund the kinds of work that you're doing? Like, where are you finding the grants? You know, what is that process like? How are you coping with the sometimes not getting it? Like how do you?
Yeah. Well, I think not getting it is a good lesson. I feel like if you feel like your art career isn't going to work because you didn't get an opportunity, I don't think you should be an artist, because you should definitely fail a lot and try a lot, and that's just, I think, part of the process. What was the other question? The coping and
Finding opportunities.
Oh, finding the grants. Yeah, I think just talking to people, getting on email listservs, like even Facebook. I don't know, like someone will randomly be like, "Oh, there's this thing," and I'm like, "Oh, I might qualify for that," and I look more into it. And definitely get to know the ones in Seattle, local folks like the Forward Culture and Artist Trust and City of Seattle. And then if you can, I don't know, like I do a lot of youth work too, and I try to incorporate creativity into the youth programs, because I think it's so important for the kids, and then it's also more fun for me, and yeah, it kind of keeps me like, I don't know, kind of fresh as an artist. But yeah, I think, yeah, and I think really building up like more than the grants, I feel like once you get to know yourself and you're able to tell your story, and then you can go on that path and it's real, then I feel like funders will trust you, and they want to support your work, and you can really make like original content that's yeah, that's genuine, you know, like it's not just like a knockoff of someone else or like following a trend. Yeah, because I feel like that's what you need to kind of maintain long term, which that's my goal, but we'll see how far I get.
You all have talked about trying to figure out how to use different materials or different programs, so you're all self-taught in that way. Like, hey, I didn't get this money, but I still need to figure out how to make this project, so I'm just gonna like start playing around and figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I always, every project I do, I always try to do something new, just to push myself and to grow a little bit. So like, if I'm taking a photo, like, you know, I'll try it, like just, I don't know, playing on different angles, different light, and just like be silly, you know. Or like if I'm making music, I'll just look up some more tutorials on how to make a certain sound, and I'll try to incorporate that into the thing I just did. Or like, yeah, same thing with video, you know, I'll look at tutorials, or I'll see something, I'll try a new style, or I'll just have a vision and I'll be like, I haven't done that before, but you know what, that's cool, that's what I'm gonna do. You know, so like, I think just like each project I'm like getting better at my craft, and like, you know, I don't want to just repeat the same thing. Like I was showing my friend a song, and I showed him another song, he's like, and he like thought they were similar, and I was like, no, but they're totally different, what are you talking about, bro? And I went and changed it, you know. But it's like, yeah, I think just kind of pushing yourself to just keep getting better, because like when you start at art, you're not good, you know, and that's okay. But as you keep doing it, you get better, and that means you're an artist, you know.
So can you each talk a bit about challenges that you face trying to make work in this city?
Like specific to being in Seattle?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I can start. I know two of the big things that I found were for visual artists, over the years there's been a consistent turnover of really great galleries or venue show places that pop up, do these amazing things, and they've been consistently getting priced out. So you'll have these really amazing hotspots for 2-3 years, and they disappear, and they leave their mark on the city, but it's pretty disheartening to see, and I've known a number of the people that ran them, and a lot of times they end up leaving Seattle, and all of that energy and insight leaves with them. So that's been a big one. And then just the rising cost here. If anything that you do requires space to build or rehearse or anything like that, it's just getting tougher and tougher to find some place to make work.
I would second all of that. I think that I have a unique living situation, which I feel like most people who have a decent place to live, it's, you know, friends and family discount or something like that. So, you know, but, you know, stuff happens. You know, I've had some intense stuff happen in my life recently, and so that affected my ability to support myself. So, you know, I got back on food stamps yesterday, no shame. So, you know, there's realities of ups and downs and figuring out how to support yourself, and that doesn't take away from your professionalism or the quality of the work you do. It's just the reality of running your hustle, right? So, And I would say, you know, I mean, Seattle film community is really rad in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of women in leadership positions, and you know, like people like Tracy Rector running the Indigenous People Showcase, which if you guys don't go to that yet, you should. It's the Northwest Film Forum. She's awesome. So, yeah, I feel like in that regard, like it's been pretty good. I think filmmaking, I mean, most art forms can be kind of isolating, so like finding your people and having support community. Like I feel like sometimes I know more administrators at arts organizations than other artists in my field. Oopsie. But I'm currently also president of Seattle Documentary Association, which started when I was out of country, and so I came back and found out about it. And that has been an amazing community. Because documentary is really different than narrative. So, you know, like I went to a women in film event and it was like about headshots and makeup artists, and I was like, I don't have anything to talk to you. I mean, you're a nice person, but in documentary, it's like these really intense conversations around like the ethics of like filming people like in their lives dealing with hard stuff, and just really cool conversations, and you know, people who are drawn to doing that kind of work. So that's been an amazing artist community for me, because it's also an artist-centered and led organization. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have that many qualms about like the artist community here. I feel like it's been really good to me. But you know, the only thing that being born and raised in this area, and then leaving and living internationally in a more metropolitan city, is coming back is like, you know, Seattle's growing and there's so many awesome things about community here, but it's still very provincial in a lot of ways, and that's kind of challenging in certain ways, just because I feel like, you know, I just feel like there's certain things that don't come on my radar because of that. And a lot of times I think spaces locally are more interested in just like reflections of themselves, as a friend of mine said. So it's like I wanted to do like an international project here and bring people in, and like that didn't really resonate with a lot of people, and so that was kind of hard. But I think I don't know, it has its pros and cons. And there's like weird artist communities in like Skagit Valley and the Gorge, and like I don't know, there's just like little pockets of interesting stuff all over that, I don't know, continue to pleasantly surprise me. I think I just need to make sure to get out of Seattle. I think that's the key. Is
Get out.
yeah,
Get out.
yeah. Like I'm part of the National Performance Network. I'm working on a 2-year research project with them called the Knowledge Building Initiative, and they I'm going to be in San Francisco, and there's things, you know, they work with a lot of communities in Latin America and Japan and all over the country in rural areas, and being connected to networks like that was like really, really refreshing and helpful. And I'm going to like a queer conference, arts festival in Austin in February for the Riot Girl film and stuff. And you know, it's just like even just, and also going to film festivals, other places, like maintaining a network that's not just local, I think is helpful. And sometimes you can not do that if you just stay in your bubble. The end.
Awesome, that's great. I'm trying to feel like that's good advice. I'm not hearing you. That's cool. Yeah, because I feel actually I'm getting pushed out of Seattle, to be honest. Like I feel like it's really hard for me to live here. I actually don't live in Seattle. And then if I don't have a Seattle address, it's hard to get grants in Seattle, even though my primary work and friends in my life is in Seattle. And so luckily some folks have been kind to be able to like kind of do a little workaround, because they are familiar with me. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's tough. I think Seattle, like when you talk about being provincial, like yeah, I've traveled like everywhere around the U.S. and like, you know, South America, Asia, Africa, you know, Europe, and it's like, yeah, it's just really different. You know, I feel like what's interesting about Seattle, in a maybe not the most like nice way, is that I feel like people are so educated here and so rich here that and it's the most hyper-segregated city in the U.S. I mean, I don't know. I feel like, you know, there's like a few people of color here, you know, and so that's, and then a lot of where the resources and the information networks are there, but then I feel like I'm starting to feel kind of welcome, but like honestly, it's like, yeah, it's kind of a whole new world I don't know about. And then in like, then I feel like because it is really hard for artists of color in Seattle, like there is this kind of like I'm hood and I'm OG and I'm like the real deal, you know, and then, you know, if you're not cool with me, then whatever. So there's a kind of this cliquish attitude too, because I think it's because of the scarcity, you know. It's like people look at people as competition. People are trying to distinguish themselves from each other in like not the best like environment to foster the arts. Yeah, like yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know. I feel like I've had experiences where people want to help you out, but then it's like really they want it's like a transaction. You know, they always want something back. And you know, I feel like I help people freely all the time. Just you know maybe just line up with the same people that help me freely or something. I don't know. But I feel like in the universe, like I'm racking up good karma points. You know. But yeah, I think it is really challenging. To build a community, and that's what I'm trying to do now. And I'm kind of like over the identity politics. I'm just trying to find like cool people who are just real and down and just consistent. You know, like there's a lot of funny stuff. You know, it's like when people realize I'm a grant writer, they're like, oh, they're really cool with me. You know, like, and then when I help them for free, they're like really down. You know, but then it's like when we try to talk about, hey, compensating me for how much I've taught you and allowed you, you know, like I basically gave you all my secrets and helped you come up and everything, and then it's kind of like, oh well, no, that was me, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think, yeah, I don't know. We actually talked about moving. Yeah, I don't know.
So interesting. That actually brings something up. You know, there's the like being part of the community, being an artist, contributing to it, but then you also got to pay your bills. So like, how do you balance that? You know, are you just like, hey, you got to pay me for this? I mean, how do you set up those sorts of terms with people when it's part friendship, part community, part, you know, just trying to help?
Yeah, I'll take this one. My brother says, you're so dumb, people just take advantage of you. They think, oh, you're just so nice, you'll be fine with it, you don't have to pay him, you know? He's like, you gotta set the tone, you know, you gotta let them know that you're valuable, you gotta do it from the beginning, you know? And I was like, oh, whatever, you don't have to do that. But then I keep thinking about what he said, because like it keeps happening over and over again. So yeah, I feel like now I just tell people like, I write contracts, you know, and we talk about money, you know, and it's like, you know, we can talk about how much time and how much effort it's gonna take, and you know, I'm better at advocating for myself and valuing myself now. And then it's like I put it all out there, so then it's like if they don't like that, then it's like they walk away and that's fine, you know. And I find out a lot of people will say yes, 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 but it's like I say, okay, you need to put a deposit, you know. I gave you a free consultation, that was already like very valuable information, you know, from my experience. And then yeah, you gotta move forward, like here's the deal. And then if they don't follow up, it's like it's kind of the actions speak louder than the words. And then you know, it's funny too. It's like when you talk to people who really value you, they're all about supporting you and trying to find a win-win. So then it's like, oh man, have I been working with the wrong people? Like, you know, because it's like when I started being serious about it, it's like the people that respond very openly and good to that, it's like they're some of the best people to work with, you know. And so yeah, I just am building these other relationships right now, and it's like it's cool. Like actually with Chris, you know Chris from the other net. It's like won the Nettie Award this year, and then Chris was the other winner. Thank you.
Chris Jordan from Tacoma.
Yeah, from Tacoma. And I was actually thinking, like, he's like, come down to Tacoma. And I was like, interesting. But yeah, like, meeting him and his friends, it's funny, I met him at the dinner, the finalist dinner, there were 8 of us, and I saw his work, and I was like, bro, you're gonna win. I was like, your stuff is amazing. I was like, I've seen everyone else's, I haven't seen his. And then, but yeah, then he won too now, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then we started hanging out, and then he introduced me to his friends, and I just shot this little thing for the Seahawks, and that was cool. And then now, you know, I got to be an extra on this TV show, then I met this producer, and then now they want to work with me more. So it's just like, I'm like, wow, like life can change really, really quickly based on the people you meet, and just keep going for it. And, you know, that's kind of the exciting part about being an artist. But it's also the struggle and challenge because, like, you know, when bills come, it's like, man, it's so bad. Credit cards are really good, though. I'm not a financial consultant, by the way. But they were checking it out. They had these, like, 6 months. No interest, and then I bought like a whole studio setup, and then I was like making music, and then I got an Nettie Award that paid off all that debt before I paid any interest on it, and I was like, oh, one for the books, one for the books. Yeah, that's right, son. Thank you.
Well, I think one thing about, you know, like your rate and being compensated and stuff, it's really shitty, but also it's like if you charge a really high rate and kind of present yourself like that, people think that you're more valuable and like will actually kind of be more respectful. Like if you charge a low rate, I don't know that people always see that as like, oh, I'm giving you a deal or something. It's more like, oh, that's how much you're worth. And then like flaking on things or like being more nitpicky, demanding. I don't know. It's like setting boundaries can be harder.
Yeah.
So I just did some video recording. Like I filmed 3 different shows in one weekend. So that was fun. But And one was Dear White People, which if you guys haven't seen that, it's fucking awesome. It's at Theater Off Jackson. Really, really some of the best performance in Seattle, I think. And it's put on by Boom Boom LaRue. And anyways, it's just about like POC experience and stuff. And you know, she wasn't able to compensate for that much because it's a small kind of like production, but on my invoice, like the way I want to present it is like, okay, so if I was charging like a really professional rate, I would have put that on the invoice and say like, this is the discount and this is how much you're able to pay me, but like still just like putting it out there, this is like how much I'm worth. And you know, it's not to make her feel bad, it's just like, just being like, taking yourself seriously, and it's even if I just do that for myself, kind of. Yeah, but I feel like around resources and stuff, it's also like, you know, I went from that show at Theater Off Jackson to filming a similar kind of cabaret at the Triple Door, which was mostly like white folks and stuff, and it's like totally different situation, but does not mean that those people are gonna pay more. So that's, you know, it's complicated dynamics and everything, but, you know.
Yeah, I think the only thing I have to add, thinking about a lot of the talk about grants and stuff like that, I've had really good luck with grants in Seattle through like For Culture and Artist Trust, and one thing that I try to do is to, if I can't financially give back to the organizations that have helped me, so participate in panels, sit on juries, anything like that that can help. Seems like a great way to give back, as well as let other people know about the services and things that the different organizations have to offer. So.
And keeping those connections too creates other opportunities for you down the line. So there's some capital to that part of it, you know. So like, it's difficult to devalue your time when you're putting an effort into something, you know, like filming somebody's project or so on. But if you can like give a little bit of time to something like that, then it could create more opportunity for you down the line. So there's some currency in that.
I think just kind of after hearing you guys talk, like I think it's really about knowing your value and then making sure that the relationship is valued on both sides, you know, because like money is one form of value, but I think like what you're saying, Ryan, like having that connection and building and supporting each other, I feel like that's also very valuable too, you know, and like in some ways a lot more, you know. So yeah, I think just holding your value and then making sure that it's somehow, you know, because I feel like if someone really values you, they'll like, maybe they can't pay you, but they're gonna like be good to you, you know, at least respect you, you know. But if like they're not paying you a lot and they're disrespecting you, it's like, man, why do you know? It's like, you know, there's a lot of people out there, you know.
Gotta get another credit card.
No, we're getting dead.
No, I'm maxed out. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of arts and culture communities function on cultural currency rather than economic currency. And I think that there's ways that is really awesome and powerful. It's like knowing people and like pulling in favors and, you know, even just like knowing certain people and getting free tickets to shows and like still being able to have like certain levels of engagement as opposed to everything being economic. But you know, my aunt is a dance choreographer and stuff, and I feel like she's been very successful in her career, but also it's like I feel like there's a certain assumption around like if you have a lot of cultural capital, people just assume you have economic capital and you might be really struggling financially, or that the money might be really, really inconsistent and stuff. And so I think that that's a hard balance because it's also kind of like, you know, fake it till you make it and like smoke and mirrors sometimes, where it's like you're supposed to like, to be successful, you like are supposed to have your shit together. And when I was at the National Performance Network meeting last year, it was at an artist breakout conversation about mental health, which was very helpful. But it was interesting because like people were talking about like being really down on themselves, and there was this one guy who was a choreographer, and he was talking about some research survey or something that had happened, and it was like somebody actually added up like all of the grants and fellowships and stuff that you could potentially get, and even if you got every single grant and fellowship, it's still not a living wage. And it was like, and also everybody obviously is not getting those. I mean, you know, like some people are more successful, so it was just like really helpful to realize that you're not like a loser to like not be getting like majorly funded, because that's actually, that reality is not, it's something that everybody's kind of posturing in certain ways. And, you know, and I think there's some people who are just like, make it work and like are, you know, from backgrounds where there's not like a lot of money flow and you just like learn how to make it go. And, you know, there's also people who have like, you know, a lot of economic resource and like there's a huge lack of transparency around that, which I find very frustrating because I'll see some people really doing okay and I'm like, wow, how do you make that work? And then I find out like, you know, their dad bought them an apartment but they're renting out in another city, or they have like a trust fund or something. And you know, not to like shame that, even though it's like can feel irritating. It's like, you know, I think when people aren't transparent about that, it just makes it seem like they're fine doing the hustle and then you're not fine doing the hustle or something, and then that's like kind of a head fuck. So just that.
As far as grants go, like, you're doing really well for yourself if you get 1 out of every 3. So you're sort of scattershot. Good work, Jay.
Yeah.
Scattershot, throwing it out there and seeing what happens and sort of crossing the years. Yeah?
What about sponsorships?
Can you say more what you mean by that?
Meaning, have any of you pursued sponsorships, and what has that looked like with your work?
Like a sponsorship from like a business or?
Well, depending on your business, there's a lot of different things. Sometimes it's monetary, sometimes it's not.
I personally haven't that much, but I think that that's also kind of like the money business brain. You know, I mean, I think part of like knowing your worth and asking for money is like being comfortable with money, because I feel like when you're just like making art and you're like, it's like cultural currency and you're just like trading, it's like you don't, I don't know, and like there's all this math phobia, like people just kind of like, it's really hard to actually have frank conversations. And I think that's why for me going through like all this business professional development stuff is like, I'm like, these are the tools I've been waiting for years, you know, and it's just like, they're completely applicable to the arts. And so I think if you switch more into this business headset, then you can think more strategically about that kind of stuff. But I don't know, I mean, it's like, I don't know who a sponsor would be for a queer prison film, you know, so sometimes that's not the easiest match, but it can be. For like festivals and conferences, like getting in-kind sponsorship, I've definitely done that, but I think our projects can be different, harder.
Yeah, I've pretty much just gotten anti-sponsorships. Like one of the last projects I did, because I can appropriate certain things, the last one, oh thanks. One of the last ones that I did used Grand Theft Auto, the video game, and I did a modification where I let a deer run in the game instead of using the game as it's supposed to be, and live streamed that and got a lot of traffic. And I would have thought that Rockstar, the people that made the video game, would have been happy because it was covered in Wired and BBC and stuff. But instead, it started a process of cease and desist things and problems like that. And I've had that with other projects where I've used like video game engines for art projects, that kind of things.
That means you're doing something right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a fun position to be in, I've been there.
Yeah,
If
it's
they
an,
hire you, you're doing it right.
yeah, it's an odd position, but I've never had any opportunity with any kind of sponsorship.
I think it goes back again to this whole thing of like, when you monetize work in a certain way, it's like even just getting investors in film projects, it's like then you're kind of accountable to them in a certain way. And grants, I don't feel like it's like that so much. So, you know, it's like if you're really just trying to even figure out like how am I telling this story and like what am I doing it, and really trying to be honest with yourself through a creative process, like I think when you go into like distribution and like you have more finished product, that can kind of come into play. But I don't know, it's tricky. I'm like, how do I get in touch with people from Orange is the New Black? I don't know. I'm trying to find out the internet didn't work. You know, just kind of.
Yeah, I guess the other one that actually comes to mind that's odd because it's got a connection with Kate Becker was, I guess one sort of sponsorship might be continued hiring for doing something, and this was like 25 years ago, but I did posters for the old firehouse that Kate used to run. It was an all ages place. I did hundreds of posters for that, And that was, in a way, kind of a sort of a sponsorship in the sense that every week I was doing several of these posters, knew I'd get a certain amount of money, and that the work would get out there one way or another.
That's not a sponsorship, that's
That's-
you got a service.
That's, well, but, yeah, that's true, but,
Okay.
I guess artistically, it feels a bit like a sponsorship, that you've got this, this organization that's an arts organization doing amazing things, kind of pushing your work out there. So yeah, I agree, it's not a sponsorship, but at that time, it kind of felt like one.
As far as other artists that I know who work with Artist Trust, there's a lot of opportunity to get in-kind sponsorships. You know, if you want products or goods or alcohol, like that's really easy. It's much harder when you're talking about financial sponsorships. A couple of folks that come to mind, you know, Susie Lee, who created Siren, has done a really good job of creating investments or finding investment for that project. There's a woman, Maya Petrick, who is partnered with Microsoft. She does VR sort of thing. She has a thing up at Mad Art that I think is going in next year. But there are some artists who are able to like work their way into this like new money in Seattle, but it's one of those things that comes up quite often. Like, how do we build support in the non-arts community in a city where there isn't that kind of culture of philanthropy like what you would have in a place like New York or Boston that has that old school mentality about funding and so on. So I think it's something that a lot of artists are concerned about and really struggling with. But like if you want a box of liquor, that's really easy to get for your art project. But I think it's much harder to fund that with money. Yes?
I wanted to ask basically, you two mentioned that you have traveled a lot. And from my experience, US is a much tougher place to be because you actually, if you don't have money, there is no other way for you to survive because there is no any protection, like any state protection that can actually catch you if something bad happens. So haven't you just thought maybe I should just like move somewhere else? That the situation is just like not so stressful in terms of monetizing everything?
Yeah, it's actually like I'm trying to get out of Seattle. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to go to Korea, but it's really hard there too because it's there's currently the longest ongoing war in history is going on, and there's a lot of it's really hard there because you know it is like a neo-colony of the U.S. So a lot of even there it's like it's really hard to make a living too, and it's becoming more and more like the U.S. But I'm hoping that you know I could kind of use some of the cultural capital by being born here and maybe make it there, and just really you know connect back to my culture, my roots, and the community there. But yeah, it is really tough. I feel like there's a safety net, but then it's like you know you kind of need more than just one. You know, like especially if you're gonna jump from really high. You know, and so like you gotta like you know and like you're saying, it's like some people have like 10 of them, where it's like, it's just practice, you know? Like, oh yeah, jump, it's fine, great, we'll catch you, you know? Whereas other people, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm being beaten to the ground, and it's like, if I jump again, it's like, I don't know if I want to get up again and do the same thing, you know? And so, yeah, it is tough. I think you have to be very resourceful, you know, at least from my perspective. Like sponsorships, I don't know too much about it, but I was thinking like, another way to make money, okay, that's sweet, let's keep talking.
Commission work on the side from your passion project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are all very good sounding things to me, and I would love to like make it a reality when I'm able to.
Well, I mean, I lived in Berlin for 7 years, and so that was me building a life in another country where, you know, there's a lot of state sponsorship, but I feel like there's also, I have a lot of friends who kind of like performed in like squats or bars or whatever, and it's like if you're kind of, it's like you're either in this like underground world or you like jump to like being like having your life fully funded and you're like a resident at a theater for like 5 years or something. And I know some like, I don't know, American artists who did that and other foreign artists who come in and stuff, but I feel like that also for me required like a different kind of level of like integration and like really kind of like being like, okay, this is my new home and I'm like gonna adapt to this culture and language and this is my life. And I feel like for me that was too much of a sacrifice. Like I still was like I come from a pretty cool place, like, you know, I want to live other places and have like a larger community and stuff, but like, you know, there is something about your home country and language and culture and stuff. It's just, there's things that you can't really replace, you know. It was like, German food's not amazing and people aren't like nice on the street, so, but there's a lot of, but there's, you know, it's like there's awesome techno clubs and like people from all over, and you know, it's an amazing city. But I think for me, it's like, I also felt like I was living in this like international like artist like bubble world where I was like also not part of like the everyday life in the city, and that sort of feeling like I didn't have like elders and mentors and like that deeper complexity that I have here. And, like even like gender and sexuality felt really like so linked to like the culture I was raised in. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I think having international partnerships and figuring out ways to like have collaborations and do stuff like that. But you know, it's like your home culture it is what it is, you know. And for some people, they're fine leaving and immigrating somewhere else. Some people obviously need to do it out of necessity. But I think when you're born in a certain cultural context, like you learn how to make it work. You know, it's like I have friends who are like live in Serbia and still like do like arts festivals. Some of them had to like get green card lotteries to come to the U.S. because they were unsafe there. But you know, it's like I think people are very creative and can survive a lot of different situations. So you survive in the norm that you have. It's like not having a safety net from the state is a cultural norm here. You know, it's like we don't have the expectation of like having unemployment for our whole life. That's not a reality, so you can't even consider it. You know?
You had a question right there.
Yeah, so Elliot, as a fellow queer artist, I'm wondering how you bridge the gap, or if you have, or if you've noticed any ways about breaking into like the cis heteronormative kind of world as a queer artist.
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I really needed to be more separatist because I needed to have a safe space to kind of be myself. And I think there's a lot of different folks with different identities who really need to have like a safe space that's just like where there's other people who reflect them and their experience, and that's really, really important. And it's interesting because I feel like I started hitting these points where I started kind of like having conflict in separatist spaces because I wanted something bigger than that, and there was certain kinds of dogma and rules that I kind of like started hitting into, and that was not very fun. But I don't know, like for me, it's like that was such an important formative part of my life, and you know, I'm fiscally sponsored by $3 Bill Cinema that does the queer and trans film festivals here. And I will like forever support them. They've been my fiscal sponsor for films for like 12 years or something, something like that. Anyways, but you know, but I feel like it's good. It's better for me to expand my network, and also I feel like I become a better artist when I like can connect with people who when it's not only about like what you were saying, identity politics and stuff. It's just like Seattle Documentary Association. Like there was like it's almost all straight people. There's like one queer guy who comes to stop and another trans person who's on the steering committee with me. But everybody's there because they're like filmmakers and documentary filmmakers, and everyone's like really respectful and stuff. And I feel like I can have conversations around like ethical issues that I can't have in like identity-based spaces. Because I think sometimes in those spaces it's it can block I don't know, like it's like there's a certain kind of like rules within certain cultural contexts, and you can't have certain kinds of conversations, like they're not allowed, or I don't know. I mean, I'm very lucky my roommate is like a psychologist who is also like was born and raised in Poland and stuff, and so I feel like we kind of have like a lot more like, it's not even un-PC, it's just like being able to ask hard questions or like talk about things that you're not supposed to in a way that's like letting curiosity run in a like ethical, honest context. So I think you just kind of have to find the people, but it's like based on where you are, you know. So I just like am unapologetically queer in those spaces. and people are fine with it. And I wish there was more people who would join CDOC, so come on over. But you know, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
So we are out of
Oh
time
no,
now.
these guys should say more things. I just talked a lot.
Slade, any closing remarks? Anything you'd like to?
No, this was incredible. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate SIF, SFI. So I'm glad you guys were here. I hope that.
Is the bar still open? Could people hang out and talk to them after, or we have to clear out of here
I
right
think
now?
we got to clear out pretty quick. We had the venue 5 to 7.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll be outside if you have any questions.
you can find them all online. Everybody's got a website. Jay has shouted all of his cultures.
And
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you all for
Can I
coming.
do one shout out
Yeah,
really
of
quick?
course.
The Seattle Documentary Association Steering Committee is currently looking for new members. So if you or anybody you know would be interested in supporting that, and we're also working on doing a new project called Doc City, which is like specifically addressing like racial equity in media. So and like the city landscape. So please SeattleDocumentary.org. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.